I want to know everything there is to know about you.
I'm going to introduce me.
You must have spotted her by now. She's always there.
Don't I deserve love?
Somebody has to like me best.
Welcome to the Don't Know Her podcast. I'm Michael.
And I'm Scott. And how are you doing today, Michael?
I am pretty great, yeah. All these films are coming out. They're all very exciting. Some films less exciting that I go to watch anyway. Like, I'm not a Wes Anderson fan, and yet I find myself in the cinema watching The French Dispatch, thinking I wouldn't like it, not really enjoying it, but still just being, very happy to be sat in a cinema with other people watching some of my favorite actors on screen. So yeah, I'm pretty good. And how about you?
Oh gosh. Well, I also saw The French Dispatch, and I really did enjoy it.
You're one of
So
those.
we don't have that in common, but what I think we do have in common that we've also both seen is that Spencer is fabulous, right?
Yes, and I mean, where was Kirsten Stewart? She might be the headlining act, but where the fuck is she in the movie?
We don't know where she is because there's Diana, or this character that is a version of Diana, and
Well,
then
that's what I was gonna say. It's like they've molded into each other. I'm in awe. I'm in awe of Spencer, in awe of it. Highly recommended. Yeah, a very cinematic, visual, emotional, claustrophobic kind of treat. Depends how you like your treats, but
Yes, I do like mine claustrophobic though. Uh, when I came out of the cinema, I said to my friend, she was like, "What did you enjoy about it most?" And I said, "The pace." And she was like, "What?" I was like, "No, honest, the pace."
what did you like most about it? Not really being able to breathe for the running time of the film.
My favorite way to spend an afternoon.
Oh God. Well, as well as all of that, though, I've been swatting up for the subject of this podcast,
Good.
and I cannot wait to talk about her. Yes, it's a her. We did do a man last time, but now we're back to women,
Yeah,
and this is a very special woman.
it is. It was one that I was always excited to come to. But only from rewatching and watching some of these films again was I like, yes, this is the one. So it was a joy.
Yes, and we won't keep you in suspense, but as you've probably read the title and seen an image or done whatever,
Oh
you'll know
gosh,
it's Marianne Jean-Baptiste,
that's the one.
who is a wonderful British actress. And how did you first come across Marianne?
Good question. I think it was Secrets and Lies, to be honest.
Mhm.
Which I probably watched for the first time. Not that long ago. No, then I don't know if it was the first time. It's the first time knowingly being aware of her. So maybe 7 or 8 years ago for the first time I watched Secrets and Lies, maybe a bit longer.
Okay, so she's
And
pretty
I,
recent, like in your
hmm
film knowledge.
yes,
That's
she
cool.
is. Yes.
That's cool. Like I remember, see, Secrets and Lies is an interesting one, and we'll get into it in terms of Mike Lee and everything. But Mike Lee, I guess Secrets and Lies really propelled like Mike Lee as a filmmaker, so a British filmmaker for those who are not aware. And then his subsequent films to Secrets and Lies just kept growing on that success. So I feel like things like Vera Drake or Another Year, those sorts of movies maybe took away from like the legacy of Secrets and Lies as this big moment. I don't know, but it's interesting. I don't think Secrets and Lies the go-to Mike Lee film as it was when I was first getting into film, and it was like I have to watch this. This sounds amazing. The way he works, Mike Lee, and everything like that. I was just fascinated by. So Secrets and Lies is my first Mike Lee film I saw, and I was in awe of Brenda Blethyn, who's playing this unhinged mother, but also Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who is delivering this really gorgeous performance. So because of that, and this is what 15 years ago or something, I would have seen it. Whenever she pops up, I'm just delighted. So like I remember her in RoboCop. I've no memory of why I went to see RoboCop. I do only really remember her specifically in this set of like this glass sort of police station. But she's underused, and she's underused in loads of the movies that I remembered her from since then. but she does have moments to shine, and I've thankfully seen her on stage, and she's just so good. And she's the type of person I'm like waiting for something to happen for her.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's always the case with her. And thankfully, with this crop of films, maybe quite unlike some of her other subjects, is she fully gets her moment and gets leading, starring, really good roles in a few of these cases. So that's a blessing. But otherwise, quite often, as with many of them too, is bit part, which is a shameful waste. But
But she does
yes,
elevate what she's in. Like,
she always elevates.
yeah, she's a real blessing for a director. I feel like she comes into set, she knows what she's doing. She might be talking absolute nonsense, as we will get into in some of these films, but you believe everything she's saying as an audience member.
You could say a Brenda blessing.
We are talking about Marianne Jean-Baptiste, right? We've prepared for
Oh,
the same person.
sugar. Oh, God, no. I thought it was Brenda Blethyn. Oh, darn.
We won't get to talk about Little Voice or Pride and Prejudice this time. Another time.
Oh, sure.
So let me get into a little overview of Marianne Jean-Baptiste. She was born in 1967 in Peckham, London. Great spot of the city, if anyone doesn't know. She was classically trained at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Is it dramatic art or arts? Art sounds wrong.
Dramatic arts. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
sorry.
just guessing, so don't actually.
Well,
I've just said
art
it with
or arts.
conviction.
Yeah, whichever way. I should have just been confident. You're dead right. And like from that, she seems like she quickly like jumped into theater, got lots of work. And she was working at like the National Theatre, doing a lot of touring with Cheek by Jowl, a really celebrated theatre company in the UK. And then she was nominated for the Ian Charleson Award, which is an award for the best newcomer or emerging talent in theatre. That was in 1994. She lost a little bit of trivia. She lost to Maggie Smith's son, Toby Stevens. But then, she's been steadily working in theatre, does work with Mike Leigh in theatre, and then is cast in Secrets and Lies, which is Mike Leigh's 1996 film, which goes on to win the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival, gets 5 Oscar nominations, including one for Best Supporting Actress for Marianne Jean-Baptiste, making her the second British Black person to be nominated for an Oscar ever. She is also nominated for a Golden Globe. She's nominated for a BAFTA. This is like a huge moment for her. So are you going to correct me? Are you?
No, I was going to ask who the first British Black actress was to be nominated.
No, actor. Well, so it's Jay Davidson for The Crying Game.
Right. Okay. Spoiler.
Spoiler. Yeah, that is a spoiler. That film. I mean, one day we will cover. Maybe we'll do Stephen Ray or Miranda Richardson or something. There's a lot to unpack there. But yes, Jay Davidson appears as a woman at the start of the film, and the twist is he's not a woman. And it causes the main character, the hero of the story, to vomit. So, anyway, we will talk about The Crying Game at some point, and
We've
it's
derailed.
about the IRA as well, just to throw that in there. There's a lot. Anyway, we're not talking about Jay Davidson or Stephen Ray or any of those. We are talking about Marianne Jean-Baptiste. So this big moment of Secrets and Lies, being an Oscar nominee, having all this happening, does not really translate directly into more roles on film. So she does a lot of theatre work. Like she works with people like Peter Brook, who's a celebrated theatre maker. And she's cast in the TV film The Murder of Stephen Lawrence, which is directed by Paul Greengrass in 1999. But it is strangely quiet. In this moment as well, there is a quite significant thing that happens in her career, in that the British industry have a celebration of British talent, new British talent in particular, the year after Secrets and Lies wins the Palme d'Or. And the invited people include people like Kate Winslet and Emily Watson. It did not include any Black British person. It also did not include Marianne Jean-Baptiste, who had just been Oscar nominated. And she was quite vocal about that.
Good for her.
Which is brilliant. as we will talk about before we get into films properly, the media and the perception of this was she was basically fitting a stereotype of an angry black person. It was not okay. Like her like attitude towards it wasn't appropriate. It just seems like it really caused this backlash against her, which has kind of shadowed her through the rest of her career in Britain. There's actually an article or an interview that was done in The Guardian in 2015 by, I'm going to say this in no uncertain terms, a fucking idiot, Simon Hattenstone, who still works for The Guardian. And he starts it off by saying, there's an elephant in the room. There's always one in the room with Marianne Jean-Baptiste. That same elephant, where have you been all these years? And it goes on to suggest that she is angry and all, like she's fighting this system and she's taking on. And when you read or listen to her talk about this time, she's basically like, I was pointing out facts. It was disappointing, but it wasn't for me to change the industry. Like, you have to ask the gatekeepers why this happened. It's not for me to do that. I'm just pointing it out. But this continues with the media, which is written by white people, white privileged people with a certain perspective, basically peddling the same old shit. So this was quite significant for her career in Britain.
Yeah.
But anyway, the roles were not there. So she went to LA. She moved to America, because she was offered a really good part in a TV show called Without a Trace. It went on for 7 seasons. Like, why would you not,
Yeah,
you
of
know,
course.
go there? But of course, she's been working on all sorts of, across the pond. As I feel like, is that American or Britishism? Irish people don't say that anyway.
I
Across the
think we
pond,
both
in
do.
the way that it's used, that which but so she's, in terms of films, she was doing like The Cell, Spy Game, RoboCop, Won't Back Down, City of Ember, all these sorts of like supporting roles, like Peter Rabbit, even in that. And TV, she does like Broadchurch in the UK, Homecoming in America. She's also in a Netflix series Soundtrack, which is kind of a drama musical. She's doing all of these sorts of things, as well as she did like off Broadway, did Shakespeare in the Park. In the UK, did the Amen Corner, James Baldwin's play at the National Theatre in London, and then Hang, Debbie Tucker Green's play in the Royal Court in 2015. Um, and it's all like she's so happy and content, and it's, as we said earlier, delivering great work in all of that. There are like moments that we'll pick out, like in Fabric is a really great example of her being utilized in a film. So that's Peter Strickland's 2018 murder pulpy film. For I don't know how to describe that. We will talk more about it. That is definitely a highlight of her career, where she's attacked by a dress.
There we go.
But yeah, like she is really super, and all of this, like, it's clear race has played such a big part in terms of the opportunities she's had. Like that whole thing about the Cannes Film Festival and not being invited, even if Marianne herself isn't like this, I'm angry because this happened or frustrated. Like, I'm angry because it's like, if she had been a Kate, like she's as talented as Kate Winslet, Emily Watson, who are, and I mean that as a compliment to all of them.
Hmm.
And yet, of course, why would she get Titanic or Sense Sensibility or all of the random shit lead roles Kate Winslet got, Enigma? Like, if you just imagine that role of like Kate Winslet films at the early noughties, why none of them would have thought of Marianne Jean-Baptiste based on race. No Pride and Prejudice, no Shakespeare, no none of it. So film is kind of, what would you say, like narrow-minded, and British film is obsessed with historical dramas and sadly they're not inclusive. Like, they're just not an inclusive industry. And as
Yes.
she says herself, America and Hollywood had a lot more to offer. So she's delighted with her career and her filmography and
Good.
everything. And yeah, but of course we would want so much more for her.
Yes, no, absolutely. I'm delighted that she is delighted, and she should be delighted because some of the stuff here is really very special. But oh goodness, do I want more? I need more. I need more. Like, I cannot get enough. this woman's voice alone is unlike anything else. It's heaven sent to listen to. It's a woman who both comes across as a very classical thesp, but without this sort of obvious kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of subscribing to a specific vocal styling. Instead, she maintains the South London accent, and the combination of her kind of deliberate and articulate and wonderful voice with this London accent. I think it's irresistible. It's a wonderful thing. She's magnetic. I can't get
Yeah.
enough.
And I would say even in other accent, like American accent, which she seems to have nailed, I'm no judge on American accent, is great. Like there's just something about her. I, yeah, I'm so glad. Well, I guess it would come across, but she was definitely on our list when we first talked about people, and I'm so glad we got to her now. I just feel like she brought real like joy.
Mm.
Um, Oh yeah, I just and she seems to be having fun a lot of the time, which I think you can tell even in the more serious things, she is having a lot of fun. And even if something's absolutely silly, like say The Cell or City of Ember, she is giving it so much respect and giving it ever as much as she was a Mike Lee script. Yeah, yeah, she's a real gift. I think she's terrific. And I guess maybe to start talking about the films, Secrets and Lies is the one to jump from.
I think so. I think that feels appropriate.
So Secrets and Lies, as we mentioned before, is a Mike Leigh film, and it's about, well, there's three stories which collide or combine. Collide sounds a bit too aggressive, but it also is probably appropriate. So you have Timothy Spall, who's playing this middle class man who's worked his way up from working class status, and he has a wife who's quite like snobby, I guess. Like she enjoys a certain status, and she doesn't want reminders of what her husband's past was. So she keeps focusing on doing up the house. So that story's ticking along. He has a sister, Brenda Blethyn, who is still working class. She has a daughter who is a bin lady. She's really struggling. Like, Unhinged doesn't really cover what Brenda Blethyn is in this movie. She's emotionally unable to get through the day, I would say, without crying a little bit. I think she would weep a lot. We don't see that, but it's just you get the sense of her. And then there's a storyline with Marianne Jean-Baptiste. Her mother has passed away, and her father's already passed away, and she has been adopted. So she wants to find who her biological mother is, and through the story, she discovers that it's Brenda Blethyn, and they reconnect. And these three kind of lives come together. Yeah, I don't want to. I was going to say collide again because there's a lot going. There's a lot happening in the film, and so the way Mike Lee works is so he casts the actors, has the characters in mind, and develops one to one with the actors who that character is, backstories, improvises, does all of that, and they work together basically until the shooting day. And he has like brought it all together, and there's this wealth of like material and backstory. Sorry, that I like is really evident in a lot of his work. But God, Secrets and Lies is such a good example of that.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hard one to talk about, but also a brilliant one to talk about, and I'm very excited to. But it's a hard one to talk about just Marianne because, like, everyone in this cast is incredible. Leslie Manville is an absolute whirlwind in her scene. Phyllis Logan and Timothy Spall, amazing. Brenda Blethyn is iconic, and it's just the most wonderful thing. Everybody who's in, and there's these scenes with these cameos of kind of other very famous British performers. A lot of them having worked with Mike Lee countless times, just cropping up in these photo studios. So Timothy Spall's character is a photographer, and there's these cutaway moments which are just brilliantly interwoven into the film as well. It's It's a masterpiece. I genuinely think this is incredible, and I've never seen anything like it. I mean, there's other of Mike Leigh's films which tonally sit amongst it, but I don't know. I think some of his films are more bleak, some of them are more warm and immediately engaging, but this one just balances the two. It's very funny, even in the moments which are very poignant and sad. Um, and it is, you did say kind of collides and worlds colliding, but I think that's fair because that is what's happening here, and it's not just because this is the story of a white woman realizing that the daughter that she gave away at birth was black. She didn't realize that she had a black daughter because she hadn't realized who was actually the father in the equation. Um,
They told her the wrong dates. Like that's what happened, or that's the explanation that's given in that. So she did know who she had sex with. Like she remembered once she was like, "This is what must have happened." They must have confused the dates. Sorry, I'm just giving because I feel like because she is unhinged and all this, but she does know she's very clear about that. You know, so she has some. I don't know what the word. She's not that unstable that she doesn't understand certain elements of like she understands the rules of the game, I guess, if that makes sense. And because there's quite a few bits of the film which I just think the film's really well done, but there's a few, there's a lot of mirroring of themes and whatever, but there's things about being like the word sluts used a lot, or like Marianne Jean-Baptiste has a friend and they talk about one night stand and she's like,
Did you use a condom?
Yes.
Did you use two?
Yes.
One on top of the other?
One after the other.
Oh, God.
Do you despair of me?
No,
Yes, you do.
I don't. Did you have a good time?
Yeah.
That's all that matters then, isn't it?
Yeah.
but the film finds, and as you say, like it says joking, whatever, but then it finds a register to be like, but on a serious note, this is okay, or this is like there's a control there or consent or whatever you want to say. And Brenda Blethyn's character, as much as she is wildly varied in her emotions, let's say, she does she's lonely and she wants to connect, and she's trying to like make sense of this like whirlwind, because like it's not even like because there's a phone call, that's how they discover each other, and so it's nothing to do with race at first.
It's about Elizabeth.
Elizabeth who?
Elizabeth Purley.
Oh, she's dead.
No, she isn't.
She is, darling. I should know.
I should know.
Look, sweetheart, she's my mother. She went in 1961.
No, I mean baby Elizabeth Purley.
Baby Elizabeth.
And Brenda Blethyn cannot cope with it, because we've already seen her life and seen her kind of day to day, and it's tragic, like her life, and that's why where it comes from is like there's all this kind of individual tragedy, but then when people like open up or try to connect, it's like it's glorious. And my memory of the film was always it was heavy, and it is heavy in parts, but the joy I felt when Brenda Blethyn and Marianne Jean-Baptiste connect, they meet in a coffee shop at first, then they go for dinner. Brenda Blethyn makes a big effort. You can tell Marianne Jean-Baptiste is getting a lot out of it. She had said previously that her adopted mother she wished she had a better relationship with, and this is her way of kind of addressing that too. You could watch this film every day for a year, and I still think you would get something totally different out of it. And that, as you say, is all of those performances. I'm just yeah. I mean, sorry to interrupt you about the thing. I just thought it was important because Brenda Blethyn is a really smartly written character and performed in a certain way that it never becomes a caricature of a working class person or a woman who is hysterical as much as it easily could have been.
Yeah. No, exactly. And it is not that, and that's why I understand exactly where you're coming from. I was gonna say it's the other side of it, this collision of worlds is Marianne Jean-Baptiste's character is an optometrist, so she's, a successful professional woman, and Brenda Blethyn's character is very much I kind of quite distant to that, and they've Marianne Jean-Baptiste's life has made her kind of a very different person than who she may have been had her kind of had she been brought up by Brenda Blethyn's character. And at this moment when they meet, you know that Marianne Jean-Baptiste wants this to happen, and it means a lot to her. And like you say, she's getting a lot out of it. But there is this sort of regret, and you can sense that I know she's glad to have done it, but there's moments where you can see like, oh, this I don't know that I'm feeling good about making the decision to now be sat here and to have met you. There's just so much going on in her face in this sort of first meeting where they're going through the paperwork and they are discovering that it is indeed the case and that they are mother and daughter. Um, but the moment where you just sort of really feel that collision, um, and the kind of the preventative measure, she says this amazing line.
I don't want to disrupt your family or anything. I just had to see you. I had to know who you were.
Listen, I want to wish you all the best, sweetheart, whatever you do. And I'll be thinking of you.
The kind of follow-up lines that come from Brenda, you can see the hurt in Marianne's face. It's kind of clumsy stumblings over things she shouldn't be saying. And the scene is incredible. The pair of them are so poles apart. Marianne Jean-Baptiste's character, very collected, very together. She's this sort of stereotypically collected professional woman. And, on the flip side of that, you have Brenda Blethyn's a little more erratic working class woman. And the pair of them are giving wildly different performances. There's this together person and there is this erratic individual, but both are working at the absolute top of their game or any game. It is amazing to have these two wildly different performances together and it make complete sense.
Yeah, it is such an achievement from all of them involved, and that Marianne Jean-Baptiste is not overshadowed by Brenda Blethyn is a real achievement in itself. Because a lot of the shots are static or it's very still. There's not much. It's very televisual. Let's say it's not. It's focused very much on the performances. Oh yeah, I love it. And to be honest, like it's not a surprise she was nominated for an Oscar for the like both Brenda Blethyn and Marianne Jean-Baptiste. And it's a real shame she didn't win the BAFTA. Maybe this is a stretch, but I would say that's also a race connotations there, because if it was a Kate Winslet who did just win the year before for Sense and Sensibility after losing the Oscar, I just feel like it's a bit strange that she would have not won that award.
Yeah,
She deserved it.
She did deserve it, but it's a really interesting. I feel like we almost have to talk about 1996 at the Oscars because it's very much an interesting one in terms of what's going on, and it links into sort of other people we've mentioned on the podcast before. But the category that Marianne's in, it's the year that Juliette Binoche wins for The English Patient, but then we have Joan Allen, who we recently spoke about in The Crucible, Lauren Bacall in The Mirror Has Two Faces, Barbara Hershey in The Portrait of a Lady, up against Marianne. And Juliette Binoche is very good in The English Patient.
But she should have won for Shahala. I know it's wild. It's wild that she
You're
didn't
the
win
worst.
for Shahala.
I love chocolate, but come now, Michael. I know you're just trying
I
to
am joking.
wind me
For
up.
those who do not know my humor or get it, I am joking. I absolutely love Shahala too, but when it comes to Juliette Binoche, I just think that's a real, I don't know, like a star performance. There's a lot
Yes,
of more
of
things, and then
course.
Lauren Bacall, she had never been nominated for an Oscar before, not likely maybe to be nominated again. Like that is a tricky thing to think, and I can understand why Marianne Jean-Baptiste didn't win. But let's round this off by saying she should have been given roles which would have brought her back to the Oscar conversation again, and it is shocking that that has not happened. let's quickly pit stop with the TV film, which we rarely do, but it seems significant here. Called The Murder of Stephen Lawrence, which was 1999's film on ITV in the UK. No idea where it was anywhere else. Written and directed by Paul Greengrass, and people might know Paul Greengrass better as a cinema filmmaker. He did 1993, the 9/11 or September the 11th hijack film, and Captain Phillips, the Tom Hanks film. But The Murder of Stephen Lawrence is about Stephen Lawrence, who was murdered in 1993 and was a pretty awful moment in British history, and reflected badly on so many aspects of it, from how the police reacted, thinking, stereotyping Stephen Lawrence straight away, not really investigating it as a murder, and how they treated his family, how just all of it. So basically, in a short, if people don't know much about it, nobody really was convicted for this murder until 2012. So that's a long time between 1993 and 2012. And this film, which was released in 1999, was released at a time when these people were walking around who murdered Stephen Lawrence. It's a really powerful film. It's very hard to come by. There is a illegal YouTube link, but it doesn't work in the UK, sadly. But I'm sure there's ways to get it. But Marianne is terrific. She plays Stephen's mother, and she's like in Secrets and Lies, spends a lot of time focusing on her face. So she sits there listening to this stuff being told by these old these old white men that don't worry, we have this sorted. And as it continues, she's just like, what are you doing? You're not listening. We're getting phone calls telling us who the murderers are. You must be getting these too. Why is nothing happening? And it just continues and continues. And she has, it's just everything, her face, Paul Greengrass, who captures things in this documentary style, gets so much from her performance. And then towards the end, so there is an inquest where after these guys have been acquitted in a formal court. Sorry that I do not know legal terms. There was an inquest brought up, and the jury found the men guilty, no doubt about it. And in this inquest, the mother speaks, and Marianne delivers this beautifully.
When my son was murdered, the police saw him as a criminal belonging to a gang. My son was stereotyped. He was black, then he must be a criminal. And they set about investigating him and us. My son's crime was that he was walking down the road looking for a bus that would take him home. Our crime is living in a country where the justice system supports racist murderers against innocent people. But still, we followed all the steps open to us, but one by one, the doors were closed in our faces. When we finally brought the case to trial, we found the trial was a travesty, decided before a word was spoken. And why? To what effect? To make clear to black people in this country that before the law, their lives were worth nothing.
This Stephen Lawrence case is just so tragic, and it is a really good, what's the word, a good way of telling that story. And she is giving such a great performance. But anyway, this is the time, 1999, she goes to America. And a movie that she does make, one of her first movies, I'm picturing this is not facts, although please, if you want to treat it like fact, do. But The Cell, I feel like The Cell must have been one of her first American films after moving in and doing all these things. And then they're like, oh, Jennifer Lopez. It's a Jennifer Lopez movie. She's playing a psychiatrist who goes into the mind of her patients to try and help them. And then there's been a murder and a woman is locked up somewhere, and then they decide, let's use the same technology to go into the mind of the murderer to find out where this woman is. And Marianne was like, Jennifer Lopez, thriller, kind of like Silence of the Lambs, sign me up.
Yeah, why not? Oh, it's a thing. It's a real thing. Tarsem Singh, the director, I have only, other than this scene, Mirror Mirror, which we watched for this podcast, and maybe didn't even talk about for the Nathan Lane one, and that film is a pile of shit. However, I really
Have you not
enjoyed
seen
The
The
Cell.
Fall?
I've not
Sorry,
seen The
like,
Fall. No, I've
whoa, whoa,
not.
whoa. Okay, we have to do a Lee Pace episode. That is,
Done.
I cannot wait for you to see The Fall. Okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, but The Cell, I had so much fun watching. Um, I think it's messy and uneven, but in a way that I enjoyed because it's two very different things. You say it's the Silence of the Lambs type thriller, serial killer tracking down his victims. Let's find them. Mixed with this, which is I think very in line with Tarsem Singh's stylistic sensibility and how he works this. I don't even know how to describe it. Like oh god, like a baroque fantasy type, quite gothic, very bold.
But it's very colorful too. Like
Very colourful.
it's a real, yeah. It's not. It's a hard person to describe.
But it's very much about sort of the kind of fashion choices and locations or set choices. Then those things merge together, and then you have something which I think is quite distinctly Tarsem Singh, regardless of perhaps which film. And I'm sure I'll understand more once I watch The Fall. But I had a great time. I had a great time with it. Marianne, sadly underused, but very effective again as this. Well, she's in charge of, I guess, what this facility that puts Jennifer Lopez into the state that allows her to enter the minds of her um, patients, or in the case of this comatose serial killer.
There's an exchange between herself and Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez is like, "What if he can go into my mind?" She's talking about the patient here, and Marianne Jean-Baptiste is like,
Let's say we do it your way. We reverse the feed and we bring Edward into your mind. Can you imagine his shock when he finds that he's been thrust into this whole other world?
I do it all the time.
Yes, but you're a willing participant, Catherine. You're aware of what's happening. Edward's in a coma.
"This is so silly," but Marianne does a really good job of selling it.
Oh, big
And I
time.
understand the audience. Yeah, I will say, like you're like, I love The Fall. I love The Cell. When I was much younger, like I would have seen The Cell. I don't know when, but watching it now, I found it actually really gratuitous in how the violence against women. Like I found it really difficult to watch. So we see one woman, like this must be the definition of fridging, because we have one woman who is murdered, and then we have another woman who then is trapped. um, and then we have another, like Jennifer Lopez being like suffering. So it's just like layer upon layer of women like suffering, and then we see the boy being tortured and stuff, and then we see him suffering other or torturing other women in his mind. So it's not a comfortable watch for that reason. And I know, say, The Silence of the Lambs does show the same thing, but that feels important to the story, whereas this is like, sure, why don't we kill one woman and why don't we have another? Like there's a way of not doing it so excessively and so violently. It was difficult to watch some of it. Thinking of friends or whatever who would be living alone or traveling or doing the stuff that these women are doing. And we know nothing about these women that die really. But they're really just there to be what would you call, like
Yeah, no,
yeah, just
it's
thrown
sure.
aside.
Yes.
So I will just flag that about The Cell. But Marianne Jean-Baptiste is not one of these women. She is powerful. She's doing all this. She's in
Oh,
charge.
sure.
At one point, she was going to go into the mind as well, and then Vince Vaughn, who's playing like the male hero
Fucker.
guy, is like, "Wait, you stay there. I'll go in instead." She's like, "Oh, come on! It would have been way more
No.
fascinating to see Marianne
I
Jean-Baptiste go
know,
in."
because then Vince Vaughn gets this like half-hour sequence. It's like that could have been her. She could have been in
Exactly.
there in massive shoulder-padded gowns, walking up and down very elaborate staircases in the mind, but instead it's Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, and well, The Cell is like the first of many, not the first, but there's an example of many times Marianne Jean-Baptiste is cast in a powerful role. So she's in charge of, like in RoboCop, she's like like in charge of the police squad, and like even in Peter Rabbit, she's in charge of Harrods. Just like Homecoming, she's in it. Like in Broadchurch TV, she's a judge. She's playing all these sorts of characters, which she talks openly about not enjoying. Like she wanted to play normal, quote unquote, people, and that's fair enough. But you can see why they cast her in
Yeah,
the
oh,
powerful
for
sort of role.
sure. It is just that command. She has so much command in her
Command,
voice
yeah.
and the sort of the deliberate way that I mentioned earlier in which she talks. It's very, and even this is characteristically her. She is again getting to use her English accent, which more often than not is the case. It's only one example of films that we watched or rewatched for this where that wasn't the case. Otherwise, she is always like in her accent, and I really like that in the case here. I think it adds dimension and also fuels the argument for why are why are actors using accents in films when it's truly not called for? If they're not playing a real person where that might be important, what is the point? And in this, it's like, yeah, well, especially in this film, why wouldn't she? So I really like that choice to be like, yeah, you with a great voice, use your great voice.
Yeah. Is there any more of these sorts of roles like we've watched that you'd like to talk about where she's been powerful or in command? That's the way to put it.
No, probably not to go into so much, but it happens a
No,
lot. But no, just I
it
don't
does
think
happen a
like.
lot.
I mean, we could talk about Peter Rabbit. I'd rather not. Other than just say, considering how much hate was poured upon it, I really didn't think it was as bad as I expected to be. And I don't know if that was just a product of expectation, but I found it to be slightly charming. I mean, it's not Peter Rabbit, and it shouldn't have been associated with the Beatrix Potter tale at all. However, it's not this like people like are suggesting it's the worst thing that's ever been made. It's absolutely not that.
No, well, my nieces and nephew love it. So,
Well, there
and
we
we
go.
saw Peter Rabbit 2 in the cinema, and it was one of my niece's first time ever going to cinema. I would never rate these as like brilliant movies.
No, no,
Like they're
no,
kind
no.
of. Whereas the reason I say love something like Paddington is because there's a heart in its sleeve where Peter Rabbit's like, no, I'm just going to be an asshole
Yeah.
and there's going to be a movie about it.
Yes.
And it's not for me. But yeah, she plays the owner of Harrods. She kind of bosses Donald Gleason around, who's in this, talking about accents that are unnecessary. His British accent and like dyed black hair always makes me chuckle. I'm like, why? Why are you doing? And Rose Byrne's also doing the very, like, they're not English accents to me. I just don't get it. I don't understand, but I don't mind it either because it's all like artifice and, I think it's
Yeah.
fun, it's playful. So yeah, no, that is a good one.
It's not a good one. I want to. It is not a good one, but it is
Oh, sorry.
not. It is not. I was
You try
expecting the
watching
worst
it with
film of all
young.
time, and
You
it's
try
not.
watching stuff
No,
like
and
that
then
with
I'm
young
sure
children
it's
who are
lovely.
loving.
I'd rather not,
I
though.
mean, I still gave it like 1.5 stars on Letterboxd. Here's me saying it's good, whereas I'm like clearly
Yeah, all right, all
two
right.
faced. Um. So, like in Fabric, then let's talk about that. Like that is amazing. Like that is for her because I
Yeah.
think we're gonna have very different views. I'm not a big fan of Peter Strickland's work. I understand it. It to me it's kind of like B horror or B thriller British thing, which is not something I'm interested in watching. So he's done like Barbarian Sound Studio and the Duke of Burgundy, all very impressive films. And if that's your type of film, that's terrific. In Fabric's my favorite of his films. And I like the tone of it. Like so in short, like there's like a department store and it's all a bit creepy and strange. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is playing kind of like a regular woman. She has a really like unpleasant son. She's a single mother and she's lonely and she wants to go on a date. So she's in like is it in the 80s? I think so, is it? And she is in like
It,
Lonely Hearts or something in
it
the paper.
feels very 80s. I mean, that's not specified, but it sort of feels of that.
No, but it must be, yeah, because she's like she's going on dates with people from the paper. So she goes to buy a dress, and God, well, what an amazing interaction between her and a really creepy saleswoman.
It's so great.
Can a curious soul desist?
I'm just looking, thank you.
The hesitation in your voice, soon to be an echo in the recesses of the spheres of retail.
So she gets the dress, and the dress is mad. The dress does all sorts of things. It breaks. Oh, it like hurts her, like physically hurts her, causes her to bleed, destroys her home in some ways, and this just keeps building in momentum. And well, I should add Gwendolyn Christie, who people might know as Lady Brian. Oh my God, Lady Brian. What's her name in Game of Thrones?
Oh, Bran of Tar.
She's playing the lover of Marianne Jean-Baptiste's daughter or son, and there's a lot of tension in the house. But it's good fun. Like I think my problem with Peter Strickland in general is like I think it's taking itself a bit too seriously for what it's doing, and it's not as fun as I want it to be.
Oh, I disagree. So I'm a big Peter Strickland fan. I love In Fabric. I first saw it in the downstairs cinema in the Prince Charles in London, which is my favorite cinema screen in London. It feels perfect fitting for In Fabric, as you say, a B movie type thing, and the downstairs at the Prince Charles is very accommodating for that. It's sort of this very red underground cinema, and that elevated the experience. I won't lie, but it's wonderful. I mean, the Duke of Burgundy, I think, is amazing. It's probably my favorite Peter Strickland, but I really, really love In Fabric, and I buy into all of that. I love everything. The whole segment, her whole segment. So it's two parts in Fabric. There is one which is Marianne's part, and she is given her dues because she is the lead, and it is her story, and she is brilliant. And then there's the second part. God, I can't remember the actors' names. I should find out now.
Oh my God, Hayley Squires and Leo Bill. But people might know her from what's the Ken Loach movie? I Am Daniel Blake.
Yes,
She's
Daniel
amazing.
Blake.
She's a terrific
Yes,
actor. Yeah.
amazing in that. But there's these two bits, and I really like the second part, but I think the second part is weaker than Marianne's part. But it's
Hmm.
because there is more interaction in this weird department store in the first bit, and I find it so wildly beguiling, and it's what Peter Strickland's so good at. And like you say, this store like Clark and the people who run it, it's very, very strange. It's very him. The whole thing is just tonally so on point. It knows what it's doing. You say it's taking itself seriously. I disagree, but it's owning what it's doing for sure, and really leaning and leaning and leaning into it. But what is then so wonderful about her is, I mean, it's again, it's she's getting to play a different type, motherly, again, so very London, and that's very much part of the character here, importantly part of the character here. But the deliberate nature in this is really heightened to a way that it's kind of like an elevated soap performance. If you think like EastEnders, if an EastEnders character and the acting found in EastEnders toppled into a wild B movie type horror, it's this, talking about collision of worlds again, this is quite something, and I love it. I think it's so
Mm.
great.
I think it's one of. I mean, it's not hard, but it's the best performance she's given in a long time.
Hmm.
And she makes all this kind of high concept stuff feel real. Like all the people
Yeah.
in the department store are acting kind of like robotic, or like they're in a Star Trek almost sort of
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
And she's in a very different mode, but she's really delivering it. And I will say the second half, I feel like those actors are doing the same thing, but for whatever reason, it's less of a star. Like
Yes.
Marianne Jean-Baptiste is able to be a star and be a human, whereas as much as I love Hayley Squires, for instance, there's something that doesn't match what Marianne's doing,
Exactly. That's a really
which
good
is
way
a
of
real
putting it.
shame. Yeah.
Yeah, because it is she is a star. She's absolutely a magnetic star, and they're not. Unfortunately, but not bad. They're great, but they're just not.
No,
They're
no, no.
not star
Yeah, they feel
wattage.
like
There's no
prop. Yeah,
wattage there.
no, no, and I think that's like going back to Secrets and Lies. Why, when Brenda Blethyn is giving, when I say acting, like I mean a lot of things are happening. Marianne Jean-Baptiste will still be equal to that because she's magnetic on screen by default. So no, I like it. I mean, I didn't like. I enjoyed rewatching it. My memory of it was Marianne Jean-Baptiste was the proper lead, like she was in it the whole time. So I was a bit disappointed when I remembered she wasn't. But when she's in it, it's brilliant. She's brilliant. It's fun. Um,
Oh, but it's about a killer dress, everyone. Why would you not go and watch the film about the killer dress?
yeah. And then before we move on to the quiz and what we want for her future, let's talk about her most recent film, Fat Man, which so Fat Man, like how you describe this one? Like, go on.
Okay, let's try. So Fat Man sees everyone's favorite Mel Gibson as a how it's described online as an unorthodox Santa Claus. He is Santa Claus, but he is very gruff in the way that Mel Gibson so loves to do over the past 20 years. And so he's this character. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is Mrs. Claus, and he's very down and out. He's come under financial hardship. He needs to find a way of recouping this money, which then involves him tying up with the military. Anywho, there's also this precocious boy who sets out to kill his classmate because she beats him in like a science fair, and he gives him a lump of coal. So he sets a hitman on Santa Claus. Whoa! Yes, that is Fat Man. Called
It is,
Fat Man for
yeah.
reasons beyond it being about Santa Claus, I don't know, because Mel Gibson's not even fat in it, and I think that already trips this film up from the get-go. If Mel Gibson
Yeah.
doesn't trip a film up from the get-go, enough as it is.
Well, this is why I think the film is wild, and I'm it's a vehicle for Mel Gibson, and it's almost like a road to retribution. Is how so the reason it's called Fat Man in the film. It is said like, why do they call me Fat Man? Why do they do this? He talks about young people and being like pointed at and people not understanding him. This is said repeatedly. So it's like, well, I don't need this metaphor of like we don't understand the character Mel Gibson's playing. Is suggest we do not understand what has been said about Mel Gibson. For those of you who are not aware, Mel Gibson, who was a huge movie star, a direct filmmaker, a director, writer, all that, Braveheart, Bird on a Wire. Is that a weird one to bring up with Goldie Hawn? Anyway, he's made loads of great movies, loads not great movies, but loads of
Whatever
movies that have
word.
been really successful. But then there's when I say accusations, it's recorded. You can listen to all this sort of thing like racist abuse, homophobic opinions, anti-Semitic, like you name it. Mel Gibson's probably said it and recorded it and denied it. So there's a reason he's out of favor. Even though, like, didn't he get like Hawksaw Ridge, the film he directed, get him like a Best Director nomination despite all of this stuff? Anyway, regardless, this movie is positioned to be like, let's forgive Mel, like they keep saying Santa's out of favor, shit like that. The most awkward moment of the whole thing for me was Marianne Jean-Baptiste saying,
Maybe it's time I retired the coat.
You just need a break. We're all feeling it this year.
I've lost my influence.
You're an icon. People love you.
and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, what is this movie? And it's hard not to think if you're going to work with Mel Gibson and make a Christmas movie, no matter what the tone, like the casting of Marianne Jean-Baptiste as his wife. So, if the perception, if I want to be kind and use that word, of Mel Gibson is he's racist and all of this, you cast a black woman as his wife. And I just was like, oh, like it just felt, and then you have her in this role telling him how great he was. It doesn't sit very well. And the film itself isn't good. Like it's too serious. It's more like a Western. If it was like a Coen Brothers wacky sort of movie, which I thought it was going to be,
Yeah.
maybe it would have been better, but it's just so on the nose. It's a Western, and there's not much to enjoy.
No, I mean, there is still a lot to unpick here. Everything you've just said about Marianne in this role, maybe she and Mel Gibson have a friendship, because I can't really work out for exactly what you say why she would do this. Maybe she's one of many
Money.
people in Hollywood and money, and of course that's the best reason to do it. But you have to understand the kind of you're going to probably be held under some scrutiny for for choosing to play his wife in exactly the circumstances that you describe. It feels peculiar and it feels a little uncomfortable. Mel Gibson, however, though, is a good performer. I'm not defending anything
Yeah,
he does. He is good, and he is good in this film. The film is just not good
yeah.
around him. But Mel Gibson, there's a reason he was a tremendously successful actor director, is because he is talented, and in this, he is good. Would the film be better without him? I therefore don't think so, actually, because he
No.
probably brings a lot. So, not. But if we then flip it and go, if it was not to be Mel Gibson, then the casting of Marianne Jean-Baptiste is quite inspired, especially given the arc of her character. Annoyingly, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the end, it feels like it's going to become very much about her, but then the film uh, buckles under the weight of letting that happen and letting a black woman own this film about Santa Claus, and it backs out of it and it turns back around again. How very, very obvious. But it is. It's sort of Mel Gibson does the kind of Billy Bob Thornton bad Santa energy vibes thing. Too easy? I reckon so. I mean, like I'm saying, he was a movie star, but we are sort of beyond that now, and this just sort of feels like, because the film is not that good, it's a redundant vehicle, and all the more so because all that it's towing with it just doesn't work because there's no value in it. So it's just a bit ugh. But Marianne, I hope she made some dollar.
Yeah, I hope she made money out of it. I also found it hilarious. It'd be like every scene she was in nearly, it ended with like, okay, like she's either knitting or baking, or said she was going to bake, or said she was going to. And I was like, we get it. You're a homely wife. Like, we get like, you know. But no, it's not the worst film I've watched for the podcast, but it just seemed like a strange mix of things.
Yeah, there was at times where I thought it was actually going to be pretty good. I won't lie.
Yeah,
But then 75% of it is not good. So it's not good, and I would not recommend.
no. So I guess we have to move on from Marianne Jean-Baptiste, sadly. Well, not move on from her, just move on from
No,
talking about her filmography to go to the
we've got still
quiz,
got plenty to cover.
and then dream about her. I just want to say really quickly, like I feel so lucky to have seen her on stage. She
I'm
was
very
so good.
jealous, and if she was to do that again, I would definitely want to get down
Yeah.
to see her.
Yeah, and I hope she. I mean, the plays she did, like James Baldwin's The Amen Corner at the National Theatre, and Debbie Tucker Green's Hang in the Royal Court. Like our meaty roles are good. Like I would hope people are making that sort of, or programming that sort of work for someone like her.
Yeah,
Um, but first, it's my turn to be quizzed, right?
it's your turn to be quizzed, and what you going to win? I guess you could have Mike Lee make a film, and you get to cast 5 performers in that film.
That's like the dream prize, isn't it?
Great,
I'll do it.
cool, works.
It's future Michael, just coming in to say thank you for listening so far, and to flag that my audio drops in quality a little bit for the remainder of the episode. You can still hear me. I'm just a little bit fuzzier than usual, and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Okay, so I have a couple of rounds for you. The first one, and it links in with the prize to this quiz, is talking about the women of Mike Lee's cinema. And there are a plethora of actresses and amazing actresses he's worked with once, that he's worked with twice, but there are many he has worked with 3+ times. I'm not talking about actors, we're not talking no Timothy Spall or anything like that. I want the women, and I'm challenging you to come up with 5 women who have been in 3 or more Mike Lee films, and if you can also name which of them they are in, then you get a big old tick of success, Michael.
Okay. Well, let me start with my favorite. Actually, is Imelda Staunton in more than Two, no, she's in Another Year in an amazing part, and Vera
Yeah.
Drake. But she openly said she never wanted to work with Mike Leigh because of the way he worked. She didn't want to get into a character like that. And I
Mm.
can't think of, she wasn't in Peterloo and she wasn't in Mr. Turner. So no, my girl Imelda not there.
You're right, just
Leslie
those two.
Yeah, Leslie Manville easily. So Secrets and Lies, as you said, she's
Mhm.
terrific.
So
In that,
good.
offering Marianne
So good.
Jean-Baptiste a Rolo. A Rolo? Do they even still make Rolos? I love them. Um, do they though? No, I have not seen a Rolo
Yeah,
in a
they
long time.
must do. I haven't seen one in a while. You'd have to go into like a Nisa, I think, to get one. You'd have to go to a rogue corner shop to find a Rolo.
I don't. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do that search another day. She's also in Topsy Turvy. Such a great performance in Topsy Turvy, where she talks to her husband about like, why don't we all get a round of applause every day? Oh, she's wonderful in that. She's obviously in Another Year in a
Yes,
terrific
she
part,
is.
and highly recommend Another Year. She's
Mm.
also in Mr. Turner. She has her portrait taken, or she looks out a window, or that's what I
Yeah,
remember.
she is in there.
And
Well, hey, you've listed at least I believe Leslie Manville's in 7,
okay, of course, yeah.
or 8 even. I don't have them all listed, but you've listed 4. So 1 ticked off. Leslie Manville, success. Number 1, 1 down.
I feel so. Ruth Sheen is in Vera Drake. She's
Yeah,
in as the woman making money out of Vera Drake's abortions. She's in Another Year as husband or as wife to Jim Broadbent.
yeah.
Oh, do you know? I can't picture in any other Mike Leigh film, but I know she's in more. I just know it.
You're correct. She is one of them, and she's in a good many.
Well, speaking of which, I'd say, I mean, I don't know this, but Alison Steadman surely is in. So Alison Steadman was married to Mike Leigh. I couldn't tell you. She's in Sweet and Lowdown. No, she's not Sweet and Lowdown. What's the one you just mentioned? I terribly
So All or Nothing.
All or Nothing. Yeah,
Um, let's see if
and
she's
she's in
in.
Secrets and Lies.
So she is also in Secrets and Lies in the same way that Ruth Sheen is, as somebody photographed by Timothy Spall's character. Yes.
Yeah, and just to flag, I mean, someone's probably shouting at their, however they're listening, being like, "What about Abigail's Party?" Well, Abigail's Party was actually a filmed recording of a stage show on a set in the BBC, and is not considered an actual like cinema film. As brilliant as it is, and as brilliant as Alison Steadman is in it. So that's three. You want five? Okay. What's his current wife's name? That's awful. But she was in Mr. Turner, and she's in all of this stuff, and she plays a Queen Mother in The Crown, and she's in Billy Piper's movie. But I couldn't tell you what her name is.
What if I give you her last name? Her
Oh
last
yeah,
name is
give me either, and I'll know because her performance in Mr. Turner is special. Like she should have been in awards conversations.
okay. So her last name is Bailey,
Sometimes I lie on the podcast. I want to say
and her first name is the same as an actress who won an Oscar for playing a French singing sensation.
Marianne Bailey.
So
Marianne Bailey.
but maybe not as French. Marion Bailey.
uh, oh Lord. Take away my film buff card there. Okay, another. So I just need one more.
Just to highlight a few for Marion Bailey, Vera
Oh
Drake,
yeah.
Mr. Turner, Peterloo.
So I'm really keen to get one of my favorite films in. So I'm going to say Sally Hawkins. I know she's in Vera Drake and Happy Go Lucky, and I just can't think. Like, is she in Mr. Turner in some part too or something? Love Happy Go Lucky, another amazing film of Mike Leigh's.
It's so good, and she is wonderful in it. So, Sally Hawkins, you are correct. She is one of them. So, you're right to say Happy Go Lucky, of course, and All or Nothing.
Oh, All or Nothing. Okay, grand. Okay, good. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yes, you should be very happy indeed, because you have succeeded. Phase one
Woohoo.
complete. Now, linking back into the best film we spoke about today, Fat Man, um, we see Marianne Jean-Baptiste as the iconic Mrs. Claus, who, of course, has been played a variety of times on the screen. Um, But curiously, not as much as I thought. I was expecting to see a list as long as my arm of people who've been Mrs. Claus. There's not many. There's not many Mrs. Clauses of kind of note in cinema or TV. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 5 actresses, and if you can, I'd like you to tell me in which film they played Mrs. Claus. So
Hmm.
I'm going to start with Goldie Hawn.
Yeah, well, this is the main person that's jumped to mind. And again, talking like Peter Rabbit, this is another film like my niece's, well, one niece in particular really likes.
Oh, good.
So this is the Christmas Chronicles and Christmas Chronicles 2, where Kurt Russell, Hubba Hubba, plays Mr. Claus. And in the first one,
Mr.
basically,
Claus.
I remember watching it and being like, okay, this is, this is all right, this movie. And then he basically comes back and who's there but Goldie? And I was like, yay! And then the sequel includes her a lot more. And yeah, if that's Goldie Hawn's last movie, what a delight. They are sweet, but again, I'm seeing it through the eyes of kids, so maybe I'm mad.
Okay. Well done. I'm going to give you a trickier one now, but maybe you'll manage to piece it together. So Elizabeth Mitchell, and if that doesn't mean anything to you, maybe this won't either. But she played Juliet in Lost, the TV series.
I'm lost. I'm lost as lost as I'm as lost as what you call her, Juliet something.
Elizabeth Mitchell. Now, if you think so, it was kind of maybe around about the time she was in Lost. Can you think
Yeah,
of big films which might include a Mrs. Claus?
Bad Santa.
Not Bad Santa, but also not a bad guess.
I love it. Honestly, like Santa movies of that time, it's not the Tim Allen stuff.
It is the Tim Allen
Oh,
stuff.
sorry. Well, then the Santa Claus, is that what that was called?
Exactly. So in the case of Elizabeth Mitchell, she's not in the Santa Claus. She first crops up in the Santa Claus 2 and then is definitively Mrs. Claus in the Santa Claus 3, The Escape
Oh,
Clause.
so they start dating in 2 and then get married in 3.
I couldn't tell
Love
you.
it.
I haven't seen anything more than the first. Okie doke. An icon whose name has been mentioned already, Ms. Miranda Richardson.
I want to say Spider because I've never seen it, and I hope she plays Mrs. Claus in it in some strange way.
I have no idea what that means. No, that is not Although she is in that film, no, not as Mrs. Claus. It would be Fred Claus, the Vince Vaughn classic. Okie doke. Imelda Staunton.
That would be Arthur Christmas.
Oh, that is correct. Arthur Christmas.
If we ever get to do Imelda, which maybe might happen for my birthday if I get my wish,
You'll be lucky.
I cannot wait till you quiz me about her. And if I fail, I'm going to cry. I'm going to, like, that will ruin my whole birthday.
Oh, God. Well, I'm going to come up with a really hard one.
It's like, what did she eat for dinner last Tuesday? Amazing. So I only got one wrong out of
Well, you were
however
not
many
done.
questions. Oh, sorry. I want to end. I'm like, I want my prize.
Yeah, you thought we were ending on Imelda. I don't think so. We're ending on Dame Angela Lansbury. And to be honest, this is a bit of a tricksy one. I'd be surprised if you know about this film. I just couldn't resist when I found out about it.
Is it animated?
It's not animated. It's a TV movie, actually, and I think it's a bit of a Hallmark type number.
I don't know.
No, that's all right. But it's a film called Mrs. Santa Claus, where she is playing the title, Mrs. Santa Claus, of course, in a musical made-for-TV movie. What a delight. Maybe I'll have to seek it out. I assume there's good reason that we don't know about it, so I'm probably just saying that. But with all that in mind, you did incredibly well, so congratulations on your Mike Leigh film with 5 people of your choosing. I'd ask you to tell us right now what that would be, but that sounds like a lot of pressure.
No, well, 5 people that just come into my head, I guess. I mean,
Please.
I have to say Marianne Jean-Baptiste. I'd love them to reconnect.
Great.
I'm going to put Kristen Scott Thomas on that list. I
Great.
love Kristen Scott Thomas. I think that'd be a right interesting thing. Now this is like those two jump. I want to say Imelda, but I feel like there's no way to surpass what Imelda's done in Vera Drake and Another Year.
Yeah.
I'd absolutely really love to see someone like Phoebe Waller-Bridge work with Mike
Ooh.
Lee. I feel like that would be a fascinating combination.
Yes.
So there's my third. I'm obsessed with this person. And hopefully when more people see Passing, they'll also feel the same way. Ruth Negga.
Great shout.
And staying on the Irish theme and being kind of patriotic, why don't we put in Jamie Dornan? No, joking. Saoirse Ronan.
I was like, you monster! What's wrong with you? I give you
I'm
5
only.
people. Okay,
Oh, I mean,
Saoirse.
it would be fascinating to see what what
Oh,
would come up. But Saoirse Ronan, give it to her. Like she might win an Oscar. Although I don't think anyone's ever won an Oscar for a Mike Lee film. Which
no.
don't get me started. Do not get me started on like Imelda losing and Brenda Bresson. Bresson? Breathing. Brenda breathing?
Is
Brenda
she still
Blethyn.
breathing? That's what I want to know.
Oh, don't say that. Hopefully, the podcast. We'll have to delete that. No, she's very well. She's still doing her show, Vera.
Vera. Everyone loves Vera. It's
It's
just
not
called
called
Vera.
Everyone
It's
Loves
not called
Vera.
Everyone Loves Vera. It's a musical
Oh,
about
that would be
a.
amazing. It's about Vera Drake, the abortionist, but it's a musical. Well, that's Anyway, sorry, Marianne Jean-Baptiste. Anyway, they all should have won Oscars for it. But super. I'm thrilled. And Mike Lee may not make these movies, but I'm so grateful for
Yes, he
everything he's
will.
given us so
Yes,
far.
he will.
So
All right, well, that's a thrilling thing. So that's something for us to look forward to. And as you're saying, Marianne Jean-Baptiste is hopefully going to be in that film. But what else would we like to see our dear Marianne in down the line? I'll ask you to carry on your thread that you have just started.
So my first choice, so one of her early films, or like the next film that comes out after Secrets and Lies, is something called Mr. Jealousy, and it's directed by Noah Baumbach. So why do they not reconnect now? His career has blossomed since then.
And so's
I
Marianne. She was in Fat Man. Did he not see it?
Nobody loves Peter Rabbit, so
Oh, good.
maybe there. But like she has expressed her interest in playing like in inverted commas normal people, and I feel like he excels in that sort of character,
Hmm.
albeit wealthy and privileged and all sorts as
Yes.
well.
Yeah.
But that Marianne could fit into that world very
Yeah.
easily,
Yeah.
and got like imagine her playing any one of his characters. Like that would be so good. Instead of fucking Emma Thompson in Merowitz stories, get Marianne John Baptiste in instead.
No, I.
All my love for Emma Thompson, but that's a bad performance, and she did not need to be in it.
Oh, that's a wonderful idea.
Replace Thompson in
Replace Emma
general. No,
Thompson.
no, no, no. I'm only joking. I
Replace
absolutely love
any
her.
Emma Thompson role ever with Marianne Jean-Baptiste.
I mean, I'd love to see it. Oh, Marianne Jean-Baptiste in Howard's End would have been something special.
Oh gosh, you could do it again with no Emma Thompson erasure, but it would be interesting. I mean, that would be a really fun project.
Yeah. Well, I'll get my time machine ready for you.
That's all we need. Easy peasy. Speaking of time machines, I was thinking of giving her the big stuff she deserves, and I thought of Christopher Nolan. But then, really specifically, my mind was transported back to a time where Christopher Nolan was allegedly circling the Bond franchise. And we've gotten to a point now at No Time to Die where we're going for a reset. So I don't know if Christopher Nolan is looking at it again. I'm not so sure. But who I would love to see Marianne play is M. We now need a new M in Bond. And hey, Judi Dench, very big shoes to fill. or very, very small shoes to fill, I imagine. But you know what I mean, like, not literally speaking.
Okay, so Emma Thompson erasure, Judi Dench erasure. Well, actually, what you're doing there is Ray Fiennes erasure. There is
Good.
an M, and M's usually don't change. So are you you like just let's
No,
put
no, no, no,
Alfred?
no. That is no, no, no. This is, as far as I'm concerned, after this, like, they are erasing it all. Like, it's time to move on and start afresh. And I want Marianne as M in either big bolshy Christopher Nolan type, but maybe we were also teased with the idea of a Danny Boyle Bond, and I know his was going to be specifically for the Daniel Craig franchise, but if he had something else up his sleeve which was going to be really different from the rest of Bond, then maybe that. But I do want it to sort of go back to the Pierce Brosnan campier side of Bond, um, which maybe we'd get from Nolan, but then maybe it'd be too serious. I don't know. So maybe we need another director here. But all I'm saying that I need is Marianne as M in Bond.
Yeah, I really thought you were going to go all out there and say Marianne as James Bond.
Oh
Um,
well, no bad thought.
um, my second choice is a film adaptation of The Amen Corner, which is James Baldwin's play that he wrote, which Marianne Jean-Baptiste did perform at the National Theatre. Sorry, let me get the date. Back in 2013. It's the story of church pastor, which is the part Marianne would play in the film and played on stage. And basically lots of stuff is happening. So she has her husband who's been estranged coming back. They have a son who has his own stuff going on, but there's music, and it's just this like it's not the best play ever written or the best story, but the way it was staged in the theater and how I imagine it could be done on film would be really engaging and really moving, a real like a drama, like a character study, and really give her a great role to play. And I was trying to think who would I get to direct it. So Rufus Norris, who is a filmmaker, he did London Road, but I wouldn't have him make the movie. I was thinking, and this is basically based on Lovers Rock and how music plays a part of that, how music and Steve McQueen might use music in a film, like a proper, like having it as like the heart and soul of something. And the Amen Corner could work that way. I was also thinking Darius Marder, who did The Sound of Metal, because there's something about following a character that way that I think would work really well.
Yeah.
I don't know who would direct it, but loads of options, and it would be great. And hopefully, I feel like James Baldwin is having like a moment now, a bit like say Frida Kahlo was having like 15 years ago, of being like claimed by society as this like cultural reference that we want to celebrate. So hopefully, James Baldwin, I feel like is starting now, and people in like 10 years' time will see his face plastered everywhere, and everyone will know who he is. And hopefully, this film adaptation will make sense.
No, that's an amazing idea. And loops into, so one of the names I had down here was Steve McQueen directing Marianne. It just made sense to me, especially after Small Axe. British black stories on screen. I love them so much that I would love to see more um black British stories, and Steve McQueen is obviously a great person to be telling those stories, and I think they would be a dream combination. But since you've said that, I'm going to sort of bolt away from it to someone else who tends to use kind of black voices in his cinema, and that's Jordan Peele. We've not had Marianne as a sinister or scary character. I mean, there's moments where we've seen her turn and be perhaps the villain and these sorts of things. But imagine her in a Jordan Peele film as, well, I mean, give her anything in a Jordan Peele film, but I would quite like to see her be villainous or a killer, just really sinister, because I do think there's something in that voice that it could be turned and used in a really interesting way. And Jordan Peele is out there making the most interesting and exciting horror thriller type films at the moment. So that was my next go to. other than Steve McQueen, who I will also voice.
Yeah. Oh, all of these movies. My last one is maybe not something you would have expected, but why not? I would love like a relationship drama type film with Marianne Jean-Baptiste, with someone like a Fiona Shaw, directed by someone like Claire Denis or Francis Lee. So, and it's just to be about them and their life and trying to connect. And I don't know what sort of obstacles would or conflict would happen, but say it's about a couple who have to leave one house or have like have lost something or just as simple as like one of them is retiring and the other one is still working for another 5 years, and it's just about this shift in their life and just a very kind of everyday normal situation, but these directors and storytellers find a way to make it epic. And I just feel like actors like Fiona Shaw and Marianne Jean-Baptiste, or so many. Let's put Kristen Scott Thomas in it again. Like, like any of
Why
these
not?
people would be terrific. And Emma Thompson could be like the cleaner
Stop.
in the house. She can just like clean the house.
Good
She'll have
devil.
like a scene. But I would love to see that sort of film. And when you hear Marianne Jean-Baptiste talk about the role she's interested in, it is that sort of everyday sort of world she wants to play more in. So no, I thought they would be. I just think that would be so good. I'd love to see it.
I'm now going to do some wild leapfrogging just to go full circle on this, but I will explain what I was going to do and now why I've changed my mind. But not changed my mind, but I'm basically giving way too many answers than I should. But basically, when she was in Broadchurch, I thought she was a standout in that her presence in Broadchurch as the like no, she was the she was the defense lawyer, right? She was
Yep.
defending the who was as we knew from watching it, the killer.
Oh, I
And
never.
she
I only watched her clips. This is Broadchurch. I had no interest
spoiler,
in.
spoiler.
But no, I'm never gonna watch. I know everything. I saw the good bits.
Anyway, she was fabulous in it. And then I thought courtroom stuff, and then I thought Aaron Sorkin, and I was like, well, wow, because someone who writes these great, I mean, recently it's gone a bit squiffier, but these amazing talky, dialogue heavy films. So less thinking about him as a director and more as a writer, I was thinking about that. And then I thought, ooh, but what about her as like him doing a British film, and then maybe he could direct it, and looking at a British female politician, and the kind of what we saw from him doing like West Wing and things like that, and bringing that over here and having her in that part, that would be amazing. But now thinking about another writer who can craft magical things, I'm going to now go back on our erasure and I'm going to say an Emma Thompson film. If Emma Thompson ever wanted to go back and adapt another Jane Austen book, I would love for Marianne to be cast at the forefront of said adaptation. I think that could be a really, really wonderful thing. She would get the language, she would get the humor, she would have a tremendous presence, which is always welcome in these sorts of films. And if we think back to Sense and Sensibility, which we gushed over just a few episodes ago, I would love to see her in something like a Sense and Sensibility, but a more updated version than even that was at the time. And that would be a dream team. So I'm going to now plant my main flag right there. Emma Thompson adapt another Jane Austen play and have Marianne in the cast.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I'm trying to think like what part, because they skew younger, like the the great parts of for women in. I mean, main parts. I mean, but yeah, I would love her to just be a staple of British film. Like it shouldn't feel so surprising when she turns up.
Yeah. Well, maybe it doesn't even need to be. Maybe it'd be more interesting if Emma Thompson adapted, say, a Virginia Woolf novel into
Oh
a
yeah.
film.
Oh my God, there's
That could
so
be
many British.
Mrs.
Yeah,
Dalloway. We have Marianne Jean-Baptiste as Mrs. Dalloway. There we go.
she will buy the flowers herself.
She will.
I'd love that. Actually, I would. Emma Thompson would be fun in the lesbian drama too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really fun.
Anyone. So I feel really hopeful. No, hopeful's the wrong word. I just like Marianne is there. She is terrifically talented. The industry is changing so much in the since her breakout with Secrets and Lies in the mid 90s. You just kind of think it makes sense she would have another big moment again. So I trust it will happen. She deserves it.
She does deserve it. She's a unique talent, and a wonderful one to behold. So yes, I feel like it could happen too. And if there was this baggage which you described at the beginning, this kind of forced narrative against her post can, then hopefully we're in a time now where we can forget any bullshit like that and celebrate a fantastic performer and give her her dues once again.
So we hope you really enjoyed this. Please do give us a like wherever you're listening, share on with somebody, do all the things you're meant to do with podcasts that you enjoy. Um, and you can find us where? Where do you think people can find us, Scott?
So if you want to get in touch, you can pop us an email at don'tknowherpod@gmail.com. Or if you haven't already, please come find us on Instagram or Twitter, both at don'tknowher_pod. Please celebrate Marianne with us, along with all of the other performers we celebrate on this podcast. And do share with your friends. We would love for more people to get involved in the Don't Know Her party. It's always a joy. Marianne was a great joy and a lovely change of pace in a way from others we've done. And that's always the joy of doing this podcast. So long may it continue.
Thank you all so much for listening and have a great day.
Have a good one. Bye bye.